Forget the cinematic roses, the sweeping musical scores, and the soft focus romance often sold by Hollywood. In the year 89 CE, under the stern, unblinking eyes of Emperor Domitian, Rome does not deal in affection. It deals in ironclad contracts and the cold transfer of assets. You are 19 years old, an age where the bloom of youth is meant to be celebrated. But today, that bloom is merely a commodity. You have been officially declared a Roman bride, and while the world outside shouts congratulations, the word feels like a hollow mockery in the chill of the evening air. There is no escape now. The gates of your childhood have swung shut, and the heavy bronze doors of your new life have locked firmly behind you. Your name is Flavia, a daughter of a respectable household, a girl who was meticulously raised to obey without question and trained to endure without complaint. Tonight, however, the lessons of your tutors and the gentle guidance of your nurses will be replaced by a far more brutal instructor, Rome itself. Welcome to Script Historians, where we peel back the saffron veil to reveal the stark, unvarnished truth of the ancient world. The first thing you notice is the temperature of the ground beneath you. Your bare feet, once pampered and protected, are now pressed firmly against the slabs of cold, unyielding marble that line the atrium. The floor sends a biting chill through your bones, a physical manifestation of the environment you now inhabit. Along the walls, torches hiss and spit, their flickering orange flames casting long, dancing shadows that seem to mock your stillness. The air is thick with the scent of acrid smoke, staining the atmosphere and stinging your eyes. Standing before you are 7 witnesses, men of status, silent and unmoving, like carved pillars of stone. They have not gathered here to admire your beauty or to offer a heartfelt blessing upon your union. Their presence is purely functional, a human wall of documentation intended to ensure absolute compliance with the law. They are here to witness the fulfillment of a role, to verify that every ritual is performed to the letter, and to guarantee that the contract signed in blood and ink is honoured in the flesh. Until this very moment, no one had bothered to explain the specifics of what this night would truly entail. Of course, they didn't explain it. Silence is the primary tool used to maintain the illusions of the Roman elite. You take a trembling step forward toward a wooden object positioned in the corner of the room, partially obscured beneath a heavy, ornate cloth. Your hands are shaking so violently that you're forced to fold them deep into your sleeves, a desperate attempt to hide your terror from the prying eyes of the assembly. But in Rome, everyone notices everything, and yet no one intervenes. Their silence is not out of kindness, but out of a shared understanding of the necessity of the moment. Your mother's words from earlier this morning begin to echo in the hollow spaces of your mind, whispered with a frantic urgency while she braided your hair into the traditional 6 tresses. "Do not resist," she had hissed, her voice cracking with a grief she wasn't allowed to show. "No matter what they ask of you, Flavia, do not resist." Now, as the gravity of the situation settles into your gut, you finally understand why her own hands had been shaking so uncontrollably. You understand why she cried in the shadows of the morning light. Here is the truth that the poets often omit. Rome never softens for the vulnerable. Marriage is not a union of souls, it is a clinical transaction, a legal reorganization of property. Ownership of your life, your breath, and your future is being transferred from one patriarch to another. Your father has relinquished his hold, and your husband has received his prize. You are not a partner in this endeavour. You are the property, the evidence of a successful negotiation. The elaborate ceremony, the saffron-coloured veil, and the walnuts tossed to the crowds were merely the decorative wrapping on a business deal. Your body is the proof of the contract's validity, the living signature on a document that dictates your existence. As you stand there, the muffled sounds of the festivities outside drift through the thick walls. You can hear the raucous crowd, men shouting crude songs and laughing boisterously, calling out instructions that are as vulgar as they are traditional. Rome claims this noise is meant to frighten away evil spirits that might haunt a new marriage. But as you stand trembling in the silence, you realize it is likely just an excuse for men to exert their dominance over a teenage girl. Your husband, Marcus Petronius Rufus, is a man who has lived twice your lifetime and more. At nearly 50 years old, he is 25 years your senior, a man of experience and expectation. Earlier, he carried you across the threshold of this house, a gesture that is often described in songs as tender and romantic. It wasn't. To you, it felt like a reminder of your lack of agency, a symbolic act derived from the ancient days when brides were dragged into homes against their will. Now that the door has closed, the world has grown unnaturally, oppressively quiet. You finally force yourself to take in the entirety of the room. You see the pronuba, the senior matron tasked with overseeing the propriety of the night. You see a priest, his face a mask of religious indifference. There are 3 female slaves standing ready, with basins of water and folded cloths, their eyes downcast. And then there is the physician, standing apart from the others, with a leather bag of tools resting at his feet. In the corner, the draped wooden figure waits, a silent participant in a ritual that feels far too crowded for something the world considers private. The pronuba approaches you, her movements efficient and devoid of warmth. She grips your hands with the same firm, controlling pressure one might use on a piece of livestock before a sale. "You're in your husband's home now," she says, her voice flat and certain. The subtext is clear. You belong here, and you belong to him. She begins to steer you toward the mysterious statue, and you can feel the eyes of the 7 witnesses boring into your back like physical nails. Rome adores its witnesses. It is a culture that trusts nothing without the weight of documentation, multiple signatures, and enough physical bodies present to swear under oath that everything was conducted according to the ancestral custom. A survival in this city requires a quick mastery of the rules, or you will be broken by them. Rule 1 is simple. Keep your head lowered, your mouth closed, and your spirit submerged. With a sudden movement, you pull away the heavy cloth, revealing the carved wooden figure beneath. It is a representation of Mutunus Tutunus, a fertility deity whose name is rarely spoken aloud in polite company, yet whose presence is mandatory. Mutunus Tutunus was Rome's god of sexual initiation and reproductive power, a figure that even ancient writers mentioned only briefly and with visible discomfort. Centuries later, St. Augustine would write of this very ritual with profound disgust, describing how Roman brides were required to perform a seated offering involving the deity before the marriage could be consummated. Oh, the carving leaves absolutely nothing to the imagination. Its purpose is horrifyingly, brutally obvious. You freeze as the pronuba leans in close, her breath warm against your ear. "You must ask for his blessing," she whispers, a command disguised as a suggestion. "You must offer yourself as the tradition of our fathers demands." Your stomach drops, a cold weight settling in your core. Your mother's warning finally makes perfect sense in the worst way possible. This is not a symbolic gesture or a quaint religious duty. It is the opening act of a night dedicated to verification and the stripping away of your autonomy. You are being prepared for a husband, but first you must be initiated by the state's gods. The room holds its breath as you stand trapped between the weight of tradition and the carved wood of the idol. The witnesses move a step closer, their curiosity clinical rather than prurient. The priest begins to murmur a prayer in a low rhythmic drone, a sound that provides a haunting soundtrack to your internal panic. Even the physician begins to prepare himself, shifting his bag as if anticipating the work to come. You realize with a brutal, piercing clarity that you're not being honored as a new wife. You're being confirmed as a functional vessel. The pronuba steps behind you, her hands guiding your body with the same detachment one might use when adjusting a piece of furniture to fit a specific space. There is no privacy here, no gentleness to be found in the flickering torchlight. There are only hands, commands, and the unblinking eyes of the law. They call this a sacred rite, but you can already sense the truth. It is paperwork wrapped in the guise of religion, a series of hurdles designed to ensure that the man who paid for you receives exactly what was promised. Every ritual being performed tonight exists because the men of Rome demand absolute, undeniable proof. They require proof that you have been untouched by any other, proof that you are submissive to the structures of power, and proof that any child you bear will belong legally and biologically to your husband, and not to some anonymous man shouting obscenities in the street. In this grand Roman architecture of marriage, you are not a partner or an equal. You are the primary piece of evidence. The pronuber continues to issue instructions in a chillingly calm tone, the voice of someone who has overseen this process hundreds of times and has long since ceased to feel any empathy for the girls in your position. The witnesses lean in, not to offer assistance, but to ensure they have a clear view for their future testimony. Your knees feel weak, your face burns with a heat that has nothing to do with the torches, but you comply. You follow every instruction because you have learned Rule 2. Refusal is a crime that Rome never fails to punish. When the ritual with the statue finally concludes, the slaves rush forward with practiced speed. One holds a bronze basin, and another pours scented water over your arms and hands, a symbolic resetting of your personhood. The water is cool, but it makes you shiver. The slaves do not meet your eyes. They have performed this task many times before, and they will likely do it again tomorrow for another girl in another house. The priest finishes his prayer, his voice carrying the bored cadence of a man who is simply checking a box on a list of daily duties. Roman religion is rarely about comfort or the soul. It is a checklist of gestures and sacrifices, smoke, completion, verification. Your body has just been added to the bureaucratic list of the Roman state. Next, the physician steps forward. He is an older man with his grey hair tied back securely, his movements precise and guarded. He does not offer a greeting, for you are not a patient to be healed. You are a legal matter to be settled, a physical asset requiring a final inspection before the transfer is complete. The physician had already examined you before the ceremony to confirm your